licensed attorney, award-winning writer, businessman, entrepreneur, and other over-the-top crap. It's Life and Law with Eugene Cisco Jr.
Hello there. Once again, you are listening to and watching maybe Life and Law. And I'm Eugene Cisco, and I am without a co-host today. So from time to time, I will be without a co-host, but we'll not let that slow us down. Today, we're going to talk about something I see quite often, and not only in my law practice, but in my substance abuse and addiction counseling. And that is changing. You hear me talk a lot of times about changing the way you do business. Well, when I talk about that you have to change the way to that you do business, that you conduct your business, in terms of trying to get yourself out of a funk, or trying to get yourself out of a situation you're in, or completely have a do-over. There are times in life when you just have to realize that you need a do-over, that you've got to completely make a break with the way that you are conducting your business. We look at your life as a business. And sometimes people suck at doing business. Sometimes people aren't good at business, and they need to know when to fold it up and try it again. So similarly, there are people who suck at being them. And they have to do makeovers, and they have to do a do-over. And so I see that quite often, and that's one of the things I try to instruct people is it's not a bad thing. Because oftentimes we get in these ruts, and we get to doing the same thing that we've always done, and hanging out with the same people, going to the same places, even as little things as eating the same food. And we keep getting the same thing, and it's an age-old adage that, you know, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're always going to get what you've always gotten. And so what we want to try to do is, if you're in a funk and you're not happy about you, then you have to try to make a decision. A lot of people really find it, because it's really difficult. One of the most difficult things in the world is to look yourself in the mirror and say, you are the reason your life isn't worth a shit. You are the reason that you have fucked this whole thing up. And that's hard. That's hard for us to do that. So what we really need to do is to kind of systematically go about the job and the task of changing the way we do business. So how do you do that? I always look at three things. Actually, four things. One of them is a kind of a subset of one of the others, but it's people, places, and things. You use this a lot in addiction recovery, but it is applicable to almost anybody in any stage of life, or no matter what you're doing, no matter what's going on in your life, or changing the people, places, and things in your world can have a dramatic impact on the way that you think about yourself and the way that you conduct your business. So let's take a look at these. Let's look at people first and foremost. People have the greatest impact and influence on what you do in your whole life, in your whole day. In fact, a lot of people will blame other people for the situation they're in. Well, sometimes that's fair, but most of the time it's unfair, because, again, as I said earlier, it's awful hard to look in a mirror and recognize that you're the reason that you're in the shitty shape you're in. We're not wired to do that. As humans, we're not wired to look at ourselves and be very critical. And that's what you have to do. In fact, I instruct most of the people that I work with to get their cell phones out and take a selfie, and keep that selfie up somewhere where they can get close to it. And whenever they're feeling kind of shitty about the position they're in the day, or if maybe they've fucked up and they're in a mess, maybe at work, or their relationship, they've done something to cause their relationship to go off track, just get that selfie out two things that you do with that selfie. One is, one is you take a look at that selfie and you realize that you're the reason that you're in this position you're in. But secondly, what you'd want to do is you look at that selfie and you realize that you have all of the answers. Or maybe if you don't have all the answers, that you know somebody that's got all the answers. So it sometimes just boils down with hanging out, taking stock of the people that are around you. If you hang around positive people all the time, then odds are you're going to pick up some of those characteristics and you're going to be positive. If you're hanging around a bunch of negative Nancys, Debbie Downers, then you're going to be a Debbie Downer. It's an interesting statistical data point. I'm not sure where I picked it up. It could have been on a Dave Ramsey show or Clark Howard, or one of those geeky shows that I watch. I believe it was Dave Ramsey. He had talked about people that wanted high-earning people, high-income earning individuals. They had a propensity as a group to hang around other high-earning people. And that makes sense to me. So if you want to learn how to build a wheel, how to make a wheel, then you hang around people who make wheels. If you want to learn, it's no mistake. I think if you track that backwards and you look at family structures, it's no coincidence that doctors have children that are doctors. Engineers have children that are engineers. Teachers have children that are teachers, and so on. And on the bottom end of that spectrum, people who don't go to work and who do nothing with their life, and whose life is filled with just getting up, looking at TV, going to the mailbox and picking up a check, then the chances of them having children that turn out like that are quite high, because their children pick up on those kind of characteristics and those attributes. And they pick up on that work ethic. Even though it's not stated, it's unspoken. And they look at you. So the same principle applies. If you hang around people who are successful and who feel good about their day and feel good about themselves, then odds are you're going to learn something about those people. And so those are the kind of people you want to try to match yourself with. Find out what you want to do in life, and then find out people that are doing that thing that you want to do. It seems really simple, but at the same time, it's very difficult for people to understand that and to actually do it. Because we get in these ruts, and then we get financially strapped, and then we feel like we're trapped. So if you get to feeling that way, and you know that, and you feel like you've got to change the way that you business, then one of the first things you've got to do is change the people you hang with. Well, then you might say, well, how the hell am I going to do that? I'm stuck here. I have no money. My job is a shithole. So what do? Well, to that I say, you've got to save a little money. And if it's worth it to you, you're going to be all in. You can't change the way that you are, and you can't change the way that you think unless you're all in. You have to be absolutely 100% totally committed to that change. And the way to do that is to sacrifice and save at the current job that you're at, the current job. Save up enough money to where you can make a move. Save up a couple of months' rent. Save up a couple of months' utility. Save up some gas money. Save up about 2 months of expenses. And then make that break. Make that break to find yourself some new people. Now, you might not have to leave, okay? But if you do, that's a way to get out of the situation you're in. Scrimp, save, sacrifice. The 3 S's: scrimp, save, and sacrifice. If you're really committed to changing, that's one of the first things you're going to do. Now, next to that is changing the language, changing your whole culture, changing the language, changing your appearance. So when you hang around successful people, you'll see the way they act. You'll see the way they dress. You see the way they talk. And you want to pick up a lot of those characteristics. You want to learn the language of successful people. Because undoubtedly, you've already learned the language of people who are not the kind of people that you want to be with. So it seems only normal or natural that you learn the culture and you learn the way that people act and talk and dress. Those people particularly that you want to be like. Now, let's pull back just a little bit. When I was always working with young people, and it's always amazing to me. You see a lot of these young boys, especially young men, who are full of shit, and they're badass, they're tough guys, and they'll say to me, particularly, I've seen them in jail this way. Well, I don't give a damn what anybody thinks about me, because I'll talk to them about they got to change the way they conduct their business. They got to get out of this jail. I don't give a goddamn how people look at me. I don't care. I don't care enough to try to change. And you see people say that all the time. They don't have to be in jail, obviously, of course. But you see people say that all the time, particularly a young person or someone maybe in their 20s. I don't care. I don't give a shit what they think about me. That's not true. Deep down, we all, now unless you're a sociopath. Sociopaths truly don't care. But unless you're a sociopath, unless you're Jeffrey Dahmer or someone like him, then you do care. I think we all care. We all care what people think about us. So I think to that degree, then what we have to do is to try to change our entire culture, and that's our language. I talk to my addicts all the time, the individuals going through addiction and in a recovery program. They have slang terms for the medicine, maybe for Suboxone. They call it boxes. And, when I was in court representing defendants, and instead of saying, I'd like to have a jury trial, they'll say, I want to take it to the box. So you've got all this kind of nasty, gutter, ditch level slang that I think you need to change. It's always tell them, so you got to change the language. Change your language. Because when you change your language, this does a couple of things. So maybe you don't have enough money to move, but let's look at this. So maybe you've realized that you've got to change the way that you conduct your business. And you can't move, so you're stuck where you're at, but that's okay, so there's still hope. So to change the people around you, what you have to do is change yourself first. If you change yourself, those people will get a clue. And they'll say, well, gosh damn, Matt Eugene's talking funny. He's not using the words that we always use. He's not using the language of the street. He's using different vocabulary. And in time, once you change your language, it's going to send a signal to those people. It's going to send a signal that something's going on. And then once they see you change your dress, you change your clothes, you pull your pants up, maybe they're not dragging around your ass, maybe you've got a clean shirt on, maybe you've shaved, and if you're a woman, maybe you've styled your hair a little different, put on a little makeup, brushed your teeth. Maybe you're starting to care about your appearance. Then that sends a signal to everybody that you've changed and that something isn't quite right. They might say to you, well, something's wrong. Well, nothing's wrong with you. You're just trying to change the way that you do business. Now, those associates, those other business associates of yours, and we'll call them business associates, whether or not you're maybe your culture is an addiction, but maybe your culture is I ain't doing worth a shit here, and everybody around you ain't doing worth a shit. So you're in the I ain't worth a shit culture. But if you want to change and get out of the I ain't worth a shit culture, you got to change the way that looks. You got to be different than all those other people that are in the shit culture. So, and that requires you change your looks, you change your language, you change the places you go. And if you're not at the places where they always go, then sooner or later they're going to get, what you're going to find out is they will create space in your world. They will not come around you as often. If you make it uncomfortable for them to be around you, then they won't come around. And that's the way that works. So, without actually telling them to get the fuck away from you and not come around, without actually doing that, you'll be doing it with the way that you talk, the way that you dress, and the places that you go. So that's one of the things is people is the number one driver, because with people you'll be able to cue in on your language and your dress. And then it's the places you go. Oftentimes, if you don't go to those places, you won't be triggered or inspired to get into the ruts that you're in. So, and now for some of you, to get out of your rut or to change the way that you business might require that you actually get out of where you're at. Get out just for a day. Get out for an evening. Go to the movies. Go to dinner. Go to another place to see a different crew of people. That could be a church. That could be joining a YMCA. It could be joining something that's different than what you're doing. So, and I suggest to you that most of the time, now this doesn't always hold true, if you want to find a totally different type of person, a personality type, then you have to stop going or doing the things or going to the places that you're already going. For example, if you want to meet a healthy person, where the hell are you going to meet them? Go to the Y. Because odds are, if you want to change your health, you want to get your shit together health-wise, then you're going to go to a Y. Because maybe you're not. Maybe you're sitting on your couch eating Doritos, drinking a beer, eating pizza. That's not good for you. So you decide to get healthy. You go to the track. You walk around. You go to the Y. You walk around. Maybe you pick up a hobby, a fitness hobby that you had earlier in your life. You're going to meet a whole different class of people. Church is another place where you might meet a different type of person than you already have. I'm not sure what you're going to do if you don't like the church family you're in and you've got to change that life. I suspect maybe you change flavors. Sometimes the flavor of religion you're at ain't your cup of tea anymore, and you got to move. And you got to move to have that religion accommodate the way that you think. Because that's really what you're doing with a lot of things. You're trying to find a way to make your life congruent, to make yourself and the way that you think match the things you do. And so it could be a different church. Now, and then if we drill down a little deeper, sadly, you might have to get rid of might have to get rid of your mate. You might have to get rid of your loved one. You might even actually have to get a divorce. Because when you get to the position where you recognize you've got to change the way that you do business, if you're with other people, you have to enlist them and get them involved. And if they're not involved and they won't get involved, then you have to find a way to remove them from the equation. Because if you don't remove them and you don't structure your environment in such a way that it makes you it makes it easy for you to change the way that you business, then you're not going to change. So the people around you have just an enormous impact. And so that's the first thing. Then the places, and we talked about that a little bit, the places. Stop going to the clubs if that's what you're doing. Stop hanging around with the same people. If you want a different result, if you're looking for something different, then you've got to change the people you're hanging with. And sometimes you're going to have to change the things that surround you. You might want to change the music you listen to. It could be really subtle things. Could be the food you eat, the time of day you eat, your schedule. So there are a whole host of things that's required for you to do if you're truly committed to changing the way that you conduct your business. This is one of those things that I'm always gearing people toward if you're not happy. And it's sad that, we have a lot of unhappy people out there in this world, and, we've already seen that medication doesn't work. I mean, I think there was a study in Europe, Great Britain or somewhere across the pond, where they talked about we've been pushing all these medicines for chemical imbalance in the brain to combat depression and things of that nature. And they've realized, well, there is no chemical imbalance. Most of the time, it's all you. You're just shitty at being you. And you need to figure out how to fix that. But you could do it. You can do it by following some of the things we talked about. You're going to change the people. Primarily, it's the people you're hanging with and the culture you've created for yourself. And that's truly what it is. You have created a culture for yourself wherein you can get what you want. You can be satisfied. Because we all do that. As we become adults, after we get shed of our parents and we start living on our own, then we start creating a culture and an environment that makes it easy for us to be who we want to be. For good or for bad, that's what we do. Some of us spend 20 or 30 years being the person we want to be, only to find out one day, fuck, I hate being me, and I got to do something about it. So if you've reached that point, there's really very, very simple things that you've got to do. You've got to be committed. You've got to go all in, and you can't half-ass do it. You have to do it all the way. You have to get rid of, primarily, you have to get rid of the people in your life. Because if you want to change direction, a lot of times those people in your life will pull you down, because they are in large part what you helped create. You have helped cultivate that culture, and they have helped you become who you are. I'm not saying they've done it. It's your responsibility. But they have helped you and assisted you and aided you to becoming the person that you are currently. So if you want to change it and you're not happy and you've realized you suck at being you, then you got to do something about it. So give that a shot. Change the people. Make the determination and go all in. You can't just half-ass do it. So if you've reached that point in your life, just make a plan to get rid of the people, the places, and the things in your world. Do a total makeover. And then jump in and do it. And in time, it's uncomfortable. It's going to be awkward at first, because this life you had at one point was uncomfortable. So you got to recognize that it's a process, and you're going to experience some growing pains. But when you do decide to do that, what you'll find is you'll develop a whole nother culture and a whole nother support system, just like you have with this one that you're unhappy with. So you'll develop a whole another set of things and people and places that will give you support and encouragement and share with you tips and ideas on how to become the new you. So thanks for, I think that's all we've got for this one. So thanks for looking in on us. And until then, I think we've got my father turned me around to help me to the door. One of my favorites, one of my classic songs that my father wrote and created and produced and sang. So until then, we'll talk to you later.
Turn me around, help me to the door. I'll never make it on my own. Turn me around.